I'm now going to introduce Jenny Schabel from Southeast Local Land Services. Jen is a Natural Resource Management Advisor based in Goulburn Office of Local Land Services. She has been working in and around Southern Tablelands, Highlands, Greater Sydney and Blue Mountains edges for 20 years in incentive funding and advisory roles. For the past 5 years, Jen has been working in the Rural Landscape Program on erosion control and riparian projects in the Sydney drinking water catchment, supported by Water New South Wales. Thank you, Karen.
Hi. I work in a lot of windswept rural landscapes, and shelter on farms is really important. So I'm going to talk today about planting native tree corridors and about the Shelterbelts handout that's there, the resource. I've got a lot of copies of this in the back table, just out the door. In relation to our main topic today, I would like to make the observation that trees have been suffering right across the landscape, including in the Southern Tablelands as well. It's been very widespread. We've had extreme conditions, weather conditions for the past 8 years, with 4 very dry and then 4 very wet years. In the left picture, we've got yellow box Eucalyptus meliodora around Goulburn that were looking really, really sick. But most seem to have recovered, thankfully, from what I've been seeing in the landscape. And in the right picture, during the height of the drought, trees on Mount Grey above Goulburn looked like they had been burnt by fire. Some have recovered, some have not. You can see there's quite a lot of epicormic recovery. This photo was taken about a month after the rains arrived. Pine windbreaks around the Goulburn landscape have been suffering as well, typically in the lower slopes from my observations. This is a photo from Tarlow. Here are some trees on a tree line in Taralga. And also, this is on the entrance to Crookwell. But on positive, the recent wet years have led to the germination of a lot of native species, especially where native grasslands are dominant. And managing grass grazing so that new seedlings have an opportunity to grow is the easiest way and most effective way to replace shelter on properties, in my view, and the cheapest. Now, here's the resource I'd really like to focus on this afternoon. This is a 2022 info sheet that was developed by Sustainable Farms, an Australian National University initiative. They have a range of projects to improve natural assets on farm, including farm dams, rocky outcrops and paddock trees. There are some great local case studies. For example, this landholder has said that he has noticed the crops on the lee side of the plantings often do better as they are more sheltered from the prevailing winds. And we have noticed that in summer the stock really enjoy the shade that is provided by these shelter belts. It will be hard to see this one, but there are some diagrams that help to explain the design requirements of an effective shelter belt. So if you'd like to know more about that, please do pick up this info sheet. These findings, this advice in this info sheet is underpinned by really great scientific work. For example, shelter belt design is important. They need to be permeable, porous, to the wind so that they filter and redirect wind rather than block it completely, which can cause turbulence. Studies have shown that native species perform better than a row of pines for getting this porous flow through. Now, if you're thinking what native species are local to my area and that I can obtain and plant for my shelter belts as well as perhaps for other plantings and in an urban context, it's best to match the plant selection to what would grow naturally in that location. They will grow better, and there are hopefully, usually, additional benefits for native conservation by providing links for native animals and plant communities. And this resource, which I've just taken a screenshot for, is called Trees Near Me, and it's a fairly recently developed app and online resource. So if you'd like to look at it for where you are, just remember Trees Near Me. It's the key. You'll find that really easily. And there is a computer browser option. So I'm going to just very quickly show you some screenshots of the sorts of information that you can obtain from this website. This is a map showing the fairly proximate to where we are. I've centred it near Bowral. And it's looking at vegetation modelling for the current day. So it's an estimate of using the best collected information of what the vegetation types would be for a particular location. I'm showing you this one because the next picture shows you what the vegetation modelling is pre-European. So what would have occurred before we've cleared a lot of the landscape, and it's just modelling. So it's guesstimating what would have been there before we did a lot of clearing in the local landscape. For each of these vegetation communities that is a different colour, you also get a description of the plant community, and you also get a species list. Each of these species on this list has a link that you can click on and find out more information. And what I'm showing you here are the tree species. And they're modelled, they're just predicted. It's not a precise list for a site, but it is a good starting point. And it gives you clues that you can see perhaps these species. You can see if you can match what you have in the local landscape with the list, and that might help determine what are the right species to put in an area. There's also shrub species, lots of shrub species. And at the bottom there's also grass species and other species. So you're getting a list, predicted vegetation for the whole entire community that you're within. It's a really helpful, easy to access resource that I'd strongly recommend looking at if you'd like to know more about your local vegetation. And I put this one on here. I've clicked it on the Eucalyptus radiata, for example. The hyperlink goes through to Google search. And one of the top performers on the Google search is PlantNet. You might be familiar with it if you're looking at native vegetation. And there's mapping of the known locations around the state. And at the very bottom, there's a hyperlink through to the known locations around Australia. So there's a lot of information contained on those websites, lots of little words there. But if you can remember trees near me, if you'd like to have a look at your local one, definitely recommend you do that. Here is a photo of some native oak species on the left. Are established and performing well compared to the Leylandii counterparts on the right. Some native species can handle wet conditions. And if you're looking to replace underperforming Leylandii with a pine needle aesthetic, you might like to consider some of your native Casuarina and Allocasuarina options. If these were planted alternating in 2 rows, they would be denser, and that might be a consideration. Or they could be planted in combination with other natives. A eucalypt that performs well in wet conditions is called the swamp gum, for example. The name's the clue. I had a one-page handout with some recommendations for specific species in this wet context that is over on the table to pick up if you would like that information. I also would like to mention another pine-like native that is suited to sites that are less waterlogged, and that's Allocasuarina littoralis. It grows to 5 to 15 metres and is a great addition to Shelterbelts. It's also a key feed tree. The female plants of this sheoak are a key feed tree for one of our iconic birds, the glossy black cockatoo. And in the picture with the pup, there's a small sheoak established there for reference. We have very low and declining population numbers for glossies. They are different to the more common yellow-tailed black cockatoos that you might see feeding on exotic pine trees. And there are staff here with the glossies in the MIST program here today who you can speak to afterwards if you'd like to know more about the program. They can perhaps help with planting eucalypts and sheoaks if you're looking to do a revegetation program on your site in the Highlands. So please do catch up with them after these talks. Please raise your hands. We didn't introduce you earlier. They're there. And you've got some resources up the very back. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So head up the back if you'd like to find out more about that local replanting project. If you are looking to plant for other iconic species, it might be interesting to know that this area is one of the 10 koala strongholds in New South Wales. And Southern Highlands koalas eat at least 23 species of eucalypts. And I've pulled these pictures from Council's webpage for the Southern Highlands Koala Conservation Project. Planting locally occurring koala feed trees is a great way to support your local koala population. Most of these species are quite tall, but some are shorter for smaller areas if you're limited in the size, and they include argyle, apple and broadleaf peppermint, and also swamp gum, which isn't listed on this page. We may be able to provide further advice if you are looking to plant native vegetation. What is on this picture that you might not be able to detect are a whole lot of tree guards right through the landscape there. Local Land Services has a koala habitat protection and restoration program, and it's currently planting native corridors in Southern Highlands. So we see a lot of large-scale planting. It might be for koala restoration. However, the funding round has closed, so we can't offer new applicants funding at the moment, but be encouraged that this is happening in your local area. Local Land Services provides extension advice in a whole range of areas, field days. We've got a lot of information on our website, and we have some events coming up, including an afternoon and evening here in 2 weeks' time in the room over there. It's on natural capital and also on dung beetles. They're the two talks. And there's dinner in between as well. So if you'd like to sign up for that event, please do see me and I'll give you more information. And the last slide I have is a one-pager. I've just put this up because I've got copies of this. If you're curious about any of those references or links that I mentioned in the talk, I've got them listed on that, and you can take that away with you for further reference. So thanks for your time.